This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 221, The Transparency Sale, an interview with Todd Caponi.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and today we're going to meet the to-be author of The Transparency Sale, Todd Caponi. Todd is the former Chief Revenue Officer of Power Reviews, and he's in the process of writing a brand new book called The Transparency Sale. And I went down to Chicago to meet Todd and to chat with him, and we had such a terrific time that we actually turned the interview into two parts. And today we're going to explore the evolution of sales, that it's no longer one of, the Challenger Sale. And because of social media, what's most important in being successful in sales is honesty, transparency, empathy, and building trust. This is a strategy built for success. So, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Todd. Are you ready to babble?
I am.
Todd, I got your bio right here. And it says here, you spent 4 years building a revenue capacity at Chicago's Power Reviews, which is where we're at today.
That's right.
And Power Reviews does the reviews on websites all over the internet,
yes.
right?
Yep. They help retailers and brands collect and display ratings and reviews on their websites.
But they got rid of you, right? You're out of work. You don't work here anymore. You just keep coming in.
Yeah, I work enough part-time so I can come get the free Tuesday lunch.
And today's
Tuesday. And I had lunch somewhere else, so that didn't qualify, but yes.
That didn't work. But you used to be the sales manager here?
The Chief Revenue Officer. Yeah.
And how did that go?
It went fantastically well. So when I joined, it was a rebuild. So there was 7 people in the sales org and about 30 in the organization. And right now, there's a little over 40 in the sales org. And then when you add in client success, it's a little over 60 that we're reporting up through me. And organizationally, it's around 150 employees and more than tripled revenue over that period of time. So it was pretty good.
That's quite a success.
It was fun. Yeah.
So why would a successful executive as yourself leave, such a wonderful, and the offices here are really beautiful, I should say. Why would you leave that?
Well, I have always had this passion to write a book, and that's what I'm on the journey to go do. By the way, anybody who's ever thinking about writing a book, the process it's one of those things where if you've never written a book, it's a whole new world. And so I went through this whole process of learning how to write a proposal, whether or not you want to take it to a publisher or not. You just write it for yourself, because at the end of writing it, you'll look at it and go, people will want to read this or they won't. And I had done a proposal a couple of years ago, and at the end of it, I was like, nobody's going to be interested in this. And so this one, I came across a concept that I thought was really unique and that is worthy of another evolution in the world of selling. And the momentum built, the stars aligned, and I signed a publishing agreement with a publisher called Idea Press Publishing, and off we go.
Now, you got a title.
I have a working title.
That's why I said that with a little ... on the end.
Yeah. So it was called The Transparency Sale. I bought every URL that has to do with it. And as I'm going through the writing process and working with my publisher, we're learning that we might need to adjust the title a little bit. But essentially, the book is about the true transparency that needs to be driven into the sales function starting now. So when you think about the concept of challenger selling or insight level selling, which was that consumers had all the information at their disposal, so what do they need salespeople for anymore? To help them buy at the end. And so this whole concept of the challenger sale represented a real evolution in that sellers needed to provide insights and sometimes challenge a customer to a new way of thinking about their problem, because human beings are not good at making the connection between pain and diagnosis.
No kidding.
Right? Like I think about like my kids, they'll stub their toe and you think that their foot just fell off. But 10 seconds later, they're running around again. Customers do the same thing. They diagnose, hey, this is my pain, so this must be my solution. And that's what Challenger helped drive, was salespeople needed to become experts and sometimes tell you that, hey, your problem isn't what you think it is. Now, it's not just information that's everywhere, but it's feedback about your products, your services, the experience, all of that. And customers are out going to go find it on their own. And
I want to be clear, we're talking like feedback from the internet,
exactly.
from social media.
Right, exactly. They're going to go find it. And it's easily accessible. They're going to call their buddies. The world has become so connected that getting feedback before you're making a purchase is so easy today, that in this new world of transparency and what's called the feedback economy, which we've kind of entered into.
The feedback economy.
Yeah, there's feedback everywhere. It's so easy to find out what's good and what's not. Amazon started it in 1995 by putting ratings and reviews on their own products.
Well, that's Power Reviews.
Yeah, that's Power Reviews. So that's all right. So the Power Reviews thing is a really interesting take on it, because it was when I really woke up to the fact that we did a research study here at Power Reviews that showed that on a product page, so let's say you're on Crocs and you're going to look at a pair of shoes.
I wouldn't do that.
So why don't we do, I was going to say Ulta, but you're probably not buying cosmetics. But there's so many companies, right? Like Jet.com. And you're going to buy a clock radio. What we found in this research study is that purchase likelihood goes up when the review score is between a 4.2 and a 4.5. So what that means is that a 4.2 sells more than a product with a perfect 5.
You don't trust the 5.
You don't.
That's I don't know your study. That's my feelings.
That's everybody's feelings, right? That's your brain requires that balance of, they need to have confidence that they've got all the information they need. There's a bunch of check boxes that happen in the brain through the selling process that they need to feel comfortable that they know the pros and they know what they're not going to like about it. And salespeople have always been taught to sell as though we're perfect. Our solution is a perfect 5, and we drive the buyer to go figure out why we're not. In this future, because there's transparency everywhere, we started messing around with this concept of teaching sellers to sell as though we're imperfect. Selling as though we're a 4.2 to a 4.5 instead of a perfect 5. And what we found was that sales cycles accelerated. We put the competition in a really, really tough situation, because the competition would be like, hey, you guys, the company you're looking at, they have this problem and this problem. And the buyer's like, I know, they told me. So we make
so you're trying to, what we used to call FUD'd them.
Well, actually, what we're doing as a seller now is selling as though we're imperfect, so that the competitors can't FUD'd us, because we've already revealed what our shortcomings are.
FUD'd is fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yes. Yep. I'll give you an example. Have you ever shopped at IKEA?
Yes. Many times.
So if you think about, let's say you were starting a business and your business is going to be, you want to be a furniture retailer. Wouldn't you think that beating IKEA would be the easiest thing in the world? The consumer experience is you go in, you find the thing you want, you have to write down the little code or take a picture of it. You go into the warehouse yourself, you get a little wheelie. If, let's say it's a bed frame, as you pull it off the shelves, the
really
wheelie
heavy.
Rolls away.
It's really heavy.
And so you get it on there. You get it out to your car. You probably drive home with some kind of injury, like a minor injury as a souvenir. You get home, you open it up. The instructions are terrible. Like, there's not one word on it. And at the end, you're just like, wow, that looks beautiful. And I didn't pay much for it. Let's go back, buy some more stuff. Like, wouldn't you think that if you were selling against IKEA, you would at least say, hey, you know what? We're going to load your car for you. We're going to pull it from the warehouse for you. No. IKEA continues to be the #1 furniture retailer in the world because they embrace their flaws. They embrace, hey, listen, consumer, we're going to sacrifice these special things so that at the end of the day, you get really modern Scandinavian design furniture and you didn't pay much for it. And that's the way that we need to sell it. In every profession, if we go in and say, hey, listen, here's the things you're not going to like, but we did that at the cost of this, the things that you're going to love.
What's an example of that, like in a service-based business?
Well, I think in any business, when you think about like a service, like let's say it's recruiting, for example.
Okay.
there's two ways of looking at recruiting. Let's say you're a corporate recruiter and you're going to hire somebody to come work for your company. Mm-hmm. It's about revealing some of the things that you're not going to like about working here, so that they're not going out and finding it all out on their own, and just saying, hey, listen, one of the things you might not love about working here is that we only have lunches on Tuesdays, or there's certain, or your insurance doesn't kick in the first month. So the first month you're not going to have insurance, so you might have to go out on your own. But it was the deal that we worked out.
I really like this because, for example, I'm demoing software. Mm-hmm. This is how I do it. I would ask you, the prospect, to go, I appreciate you coming and visiting me, allowing me to come visit you today. What did you want to see? Mm-hmm. And then you would give me this list of 10 things.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, okay. I would give you the illusion you're running the meeting. I start walking through the list. Mm-hmm. And I might be able to do some things on that list, or I might not.
Yeah. I
might say, I don't know. I got to get back to you. But they're going to walk. What the goal is, if you've done your homework, you're going to have done the majority of. You're going to have completed the majority of those things, which is good enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. But I don't think you should hide the fact that the things you don't do, you don't do.
You don't do. We just don't do that.
Right. And this is why.
We don't do that. We thought about doing it. Mm-hmm. We might do it someday, but we don't do it right now.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. And there's sometimes, I'll give you an example from here. One of our competitors has been building a functionality that is not something that's on the Power Review's radar and hasn't been. And some of our competitors' customers are liking it. And so I went into a selling situation where the customer was like, listen, I'm looking at you and them. Tell me why you're better. And I was like, you know what? We've got an hour scheduled. You got 8 people in the room. So why don't I save you some time? Let me tell you why they're better. We'll start there. And if those things are so important, I'm going to give you 50 minutes back to your life. And the guy was just like, what? And so I was like, they're working on this technology. Here's what it does. Here's the value it provides. But it's different. And it's not even on our roadmap. And we're going to focus on these things. We're going to be really good at our core. And we're not going off in this direction. But if that's really important to you, let's air it now. And instead of going through an hour here and we get into a big thing and then you figure out we don't do that.
Interesting.
And the whole room melted. Literally, it was like they were in this. It's a New York company. So they had this kind of New York, like, tell me why you're better. And I was like, well, let me tell you why they're better. And they became human. And we ended up with a human conversation where 15 minutes left to go in the meeting. That head of e-commerce kicked the other 7 people out, pulled a folder off of his credenza that had his budget on it, and actually showed me the line item for, I have this much money to spend here. I've never had a customer do that. That actually showed me the budget that had all the things they're going to spend and all the dollar amounts. And he's like, see that one?
It's like he pulled out his wallet, said, this is how much I have. And you go, good enough for me.
That'll work. Exactly. But it's amazing when you break down the barriers of, our brains are wired to resist being sold to. And if we can break down those barriers and reveal our vulnerabilities early in a sales cycle, we build trust, we speed sales cycles. That sales cycle, which would typically be 4 to 6 months, I believe they signed in less than 4 weeks. So it accelerates the sales cycle dramatically when we're just human beings and we give them all the information they need. So you're preventing them from having to go do homework on their own.
This is what Sales Babble's all about. It's all about taking away all that gobbledygook babble that's out of there, mm-hmm. and really being authentic and having an attitude of like, I'm here to help you, help your business.
Yes.
Maybe I can help you. Maybe I can't. Maybe I know somebody who can help you.
Right.
But I'm just here to see if I can help you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how you get loyal clients.
Exactly.
I think it's how you earn them, and they won't leave you.
Right. Oh, totally. Absolutely. If we're transparent right from the get-go, that's what trust is in any relationship. Like imagine it's a dating site, and if dating sites started making the profile people list out the 3 flaws that they had, so that another potential mate would look at it and go, I can live with that. Like, wouldn't that speed things up a little bit? You wouldn't be wasting time on terrible dates.
Or maybe it's a deal breaker.
Exactly.
Or you'd be better off, right?
You'd be better off knowing now versus going down a relationship and breaking up later. It applies to everything. It's all about honesty and trust. But the thing is, Pat, that when I talk to people, sales professionals, they always say, well, I'm honest. I'm always honest. And I'm transparent. I don't think people really know what that is. that they're honest and transparent to a point. But what I'm asking people to try is to go search yourself. If you were buying from you, go do searches and find out what people are saying about you. Look at your NPS, Net Promoter Score surveys, if you send those out, and find out what people genuinely dislike about you, and lead with that. They're like, hey, here's some of the things that you're probably not going to like. There's 10% of our customers don't like X, but 90% love all this other stuff. And if that 10 is really important to you, we're going to save each other a lot of time and frustration. And that's what the future has to be. Here's the thing. I've got a 7 and a 5-year-old. They look at reviews for everything they do already. Our children are growing up with reviews. My daughter, before she'll download a princess game on her iPad, she's looking in the iTunes App Store to see how many stars it is. If it's 1 star, she's not doing it. If it's 4, 4.5, 5 stars, she'll ask me to download it for her if it's free. Those are the buyers. 15 years from now, my daughter, my son will be buying. And they're growing up with transparency everywhere. And I think that sellers need to prepare for that.
This goes in the order. There's something you said before about customer support and the idea of if you go back and look at the issues that people have, that 10%.
Yeah.
Picture if companies were more open to really taking that customer support information and integrating that and using that to make their products better.
Well, I think companies are getting better at that. What I'm also leading to is, here, I'll give a Power Reviews example. We do something called sampling. So what sampling is let's say you're a CPG company and you're coming out with a new thing of salsa. What you might do is find 100 people that will try the salsa and then write reviews for you. Positive or negative, but it's a way to seed the market and get feedback back right away. And that's something that Power Reviews is helping companies do, is send it out, collect the feedback, and then be able to display it. One of the things that we started, I was teaching the reps to do, is to lead with a sampling project that we screwed up. And it was one where it was a company that was built trampolines. And they wanted to send out 100 trampolines and have people try it and write reviews. The one thing we failed to do was ask people about the house that they lived in. We ended up sending trampolines to people in condos. Backyard trampolines. Like, they get this big box. And when we would lead with that and say, hey, one of the things that we're going to help do is profile the customers that we're sending this thing out to, because we learned our lesson. We screwed up when we sent trampolines to people in condos. The buyer laughs. They get disarmed, because instead of leading with all the great things you've done, you're leading with some of your flaws that you've learned lessons from. And that's part of what you're talking about with taking the NPS, the Net Promoter Score, or whatever the customer survey data is, and putting it back into your products, absolutely. But giving that data to the salespeople to talk about the lessons that we've learned through our screw-ups. That transparency is literally very disarming for anybody in a selling situation.
Yeah. I used to work in a B2B startup. One thing that really worked well for us was we had a 1-800 number where people could call in and complain. Customers could go in there. And then we found that when a bunch of people called about it, if we just fixed the software, those calls went away.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you get a bunch of emails in, which is what most tech companies do, we only do email support. And I have had debated this with many, many people, and I've not been able to convert them. But I'm telling you, you're going to move your product faster if you had people on the telephone, because it will be visceral to them. It's like, we got to stop these phone calls from happening. Let's fix the software.
Yes.
Let's fix the software. Let's fix the software.
Yeah.
Or let's pop it up and say, we don't have that feature.
Right. Exactly.
That's
the thing.
We don't do this.
Exactly.
And they go, oh, okay. And then they would just move on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Call your rep. Have that feature on, and it would be the upsell maybe, or something like.
Exactly. And I think that leads to another piece that I talk about in the book is the whole field of neuroscience and brain science has exploded in the last 20 to 30 years. There's guys like Robert Cialdini and Roger Dooley, and they've taken it and applied it to marketing. But I haven't seen a lot taken and applied to sales methodology. But the interesting thing is there's two things that have come out. Number one is this whole concept of people making decisions with feeling and emotion and backing it up with logic.
Yep.
And then we're still teaching salespeople to sell with logic, which is data, ROI, features, benefits.
It's true.
And then the other piece is we teach salespeople about this. We call it a sales process. And the last step in it is to get them to make a decision to buy. So it's focused on one decision. Unfortunately, buyers are making literally hundreds and thousands of micro decisions through the selling process. They're constantly, everybody listening to this podcast right now is subconsciously making a decision as to whether they want to turn it off right now. They're constantly making, their brain is wired to like, am I going to get eaten? Can I eat? Can I mate? There's all these decisions that are going on in the brain, and they're happening subconsciously constantly. And there's opportunities for us to think about that in the way that we teach reps to prospect, present, negotiate, post-sale implementation or actualization. All those subconscious decision-making that's going on. Those are things that there's so much research on that's exploding, and it hasn't quite made its way into sales. And I'm hoping to at least take a big step for people in that regard.
It's clear that this is troublesome. I've always liked to think of myself as a logical person. If only we could do things more logical. Mm-hmm. And I had a guy show up at a cryptocurrency meetup last week who's doing a startup. He's trying to raise funds. Crowds are funding for this thing where we're all going to fill it out kind of like a matchmaking website on our political beliefs, and it will match us up, and it's going to force everybody to have a logical conversation. I'm like, dude, people don't want to be logical.
Nope.
And it's because of the very reason that you just said. You said that we got so much going on in our heads. Mm-hmm. If we were to logically walk through each of these decisions, we wouldn't make any decisions.
Oh, true. And the other piece, though, is that we each have something that I can't remember the author's name, but he calls a limbic filter. And your limbic filter, so your limbic is your feeling brain. And the filter is the things that have been built up through your experiences, through your upbringing, through your indoctrination, through just your environment. That when you read a political tweet, for example, the same words. So the words haven't changed, but you look at the replies underneath. Some people think it's the greatest thing they've ever read, and some people think it is the stupidest thing they've ever read. They're reading the same words. It's because we have a filter that's built up in our brain, and in many cases, we're not willing to change that filter. And so that's in a sales situation. If we look at two companies that are very similar with similar challenges, will they always choose the same company to do business with? No, because the buyers each have a limbic filter, and they're looking at the world through different experiences and upbringings, and you're not going to change that. And that's a feeling that happens within the brain that we just need to be aware of as sellers.
This is what I coach people on all the time, mm-hmm. that you've got to get people to, they generally have this notion of people buy from, or they only buy from people who trust, right? If we heard that. Mm-hmm. I had a nickel for every time I heard that. But there's something to that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's about, there's a chart I have in the book, but I'll try to paint the picture of it, that the closer you get to 100% trust is when your buyer doesn't feel like they need to do more homework. So I'll say that again. If they believe in you, they trust you, they believe that they're getting all the information they need from you, they lose the feeling of going out and doing other homework.
Absolutely.
As you leave 100% and you get closer to zero, they're going out and doing tons of homework. And oftentimes they're not coming back once they've done it, which is why they say 75+% of deals and opportunities that you work end up with no decision being made. And in many cases, you never even hear from them again because they've gone out and done their own homework because the trust level was not 100%. It's just interesting
There's
stuff.
This point when you're demoing software where you show them. They ask you to show one thing, and you click, 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 show them. And they ask you another, you go click, 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 show them. Mm-hmm. Ask you another, click, click, show them. And then they ask you again, and you go click, and they go, just tell me how it works.
Yeah.
Then you say, what's next? And they go, just tell me how it works. Just tell me. Because all of a sudden they see that. They walk away with the impression like, I asked him, he showed me. I asked him, he showed me. And he didn't know what I was going to, in their mind, they didn't know what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
So they must be pretty honest.
Yeah.
And they just start believing. And if all the answers seem rational.
And then by the time you get to the end, they don't even need to ask anything. Because they trust you that much that if you're thinking this is going to be a fit and I trust you 100%, when I'm at that magic 100%, which is rare, they won't even need to ask you to explain it anymore.
Right. And I think that what happens is people like go for the close too soon. Mm-hmm. They wonder why it's not moving forward, these sideways deals.
Yeah.
And it's because of this very
Often
thing.
is. Yeah, exactly. You have not created that feeling in the buyer's mind of pure confidence.
Pure confidence.
Yeah. And that's what it takes at the end. I mean, the customer, it's funny. Like, I got a neighbor who bought a Corvette recently, mid-40s guy, buys a Corvette, and you talk to him about, this is beautiful. What led you to this purchase? And he's like, that other little car I was driving, like I'm pulling onto the expressway and I'm just not getting the acceleration that I need, which is pretty dangerous. And I got a great APR on this car because it's a 1 year past model. I'm like, that's not why you bought this car. You're not like mid-40s guy buying a Corvette. The reason you bought it is because the feeling. You want to recapture something. Like it's all feeling. And of course it is, right? If Corvette went out selling that car based on the APR and the acceleration, there's 1,000 cars you could buy for that. Why did you buy a Corvette? So he could look like this, young, youthful, energetic guy. That's how people do it.
This is a good point. And this is an opportunity for us to be more self-reflective. As an engineer, I like to think of myself as a pretty logical, rational guy because if it's not logical and it's not rational, software doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the God-honest truth is I am not very logical and rational in my choices. I do a lot of stuff on feelings. And so do my buyers.
Absolutely. So if you think about 30 years ago, a lot of business used to happen on the 3 martini lunches and on golf courses. Yeah. Is because sellers knew that you get a couple of drinks in people and you become their buddy and decisions get made that way. There's a feeling. And that's why all these big organizations have put such structure around their processes.
Trying to make it logical.
Make it as logical as they can. At the birth of the RFP.
It's a spreadsheet. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's the birth of the RFP.
Yeah. And it happened because people make decisions based on feeling and back it up with logic. And big businesses, that's not scalable. It doesn't result in consistent good decisions. And so they had to put structure behind it to limit. Now, even with RFPs, the buyer is still making a decision based on feeling. But in the end, there's a lot more back it up.
I always thought those things were rigged.
Oh, most of them are.
Because they know who they want to buy from.
Yes, exactly.
That person writes the first RFP.
Yeah.
In fact, I even tried pulling that on a few people.
Oh, sure. Exactly. That's what we try to do. We're like, hey, you're going to go to RFP. We'll give you the questions to use.
I'll make it easy for you.
Exactly.
Here's a spreadsheet.
That's right. Off you go. So RFP, like that whole process is meant to put more logic into a feeling-based decision. And it works a little bit. At least it's better than 3 martini lunches and golf courses. But still, feelings run the day. I think there's an author, Antonio Damasio, who writes about that in his book, Descartes' Error.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. And basically what it says is if you've got damage to that feeling center, people no longer can experience emotion. And when they lose the ability to experience emotion, they literally cannot make decisions. This guy, Elliot, in the book, talks about how he couldn't even make a decision to get out of bed in the morning. Now, if that's true...
Yeah, we were talking about... I remember we were talking about that last week or so. Yes. Oliver Sacks did a bunch of studies on that stuff, too. The man who mistook his wife for a hat.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and I read that because of your recommendation. And that story about that.
It's almost like they're colorblind.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can see red and green.
Yeah.
They can't see it.
Right.
They can't see emotion.
Exactly. That's right.
But that's not our average buyer.
Exactly. But our average buyer... still, it uses the limbic, so the feeling center, to make decisions and then backs it up with the cortex, the neocortex, which is the logic center, every time, 100% of the time. And if we're all leading with logic as sales professionals and not injecting, when I say you got to inject feeling into the sales cycle, part of that feeling is trust, probably the biggest, and you use transparency to get there. But it's painting a picture for a customer and and digging at what their personal values are. Like, what are they trying to accomplish in their life? And how are we going to make their life easier for them? We got to make them feel like this is a really good decision from a confidence, from a trust, and from a quality of life perspective. And if we're touching those buttons, we're more likely to get a sale done versus if all we're focusing on is ROI and features and how it's going to be to implement and all of that. We got to inject feeling into the sales process.
Absolutely. This whole conversation has been a conversation about strategy.
Yeah.
Maybe we could leave people with one tactic so that they could take action on this.
Yeah.
What would that be?
There's so many.
That's why I only said one.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many.
Or maybe we should go for another 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, you possibly could. It's, when we talk about people making decisions subconsciously, like there's Dr. Martin Lidstrom did a study on the effect of warning labels on cigarette boxes. Mm-hmm. You got to read it. It is fantastic. Where he asks smokers, he brings in hundreds of smokers and says, what do the warning labels make you feel? And they're like, oh, I feel awful. Like I really got to quit. It's actually telling their brain, you know what? I haven't had a cigarette in a while. Cigarette warning labels actually are encouraging the subconscious brain to smoke. Oh, it's amazing. So where I'm going with that is that our brain is not always making logical decisions. They're making feeling decisions. And as sellers, we think that our products are so fantastic that any buyer, when they see the message I send them, is going to melt. Like, oh, they've got to open my email. When you're sending out an email, think about that. If your emails right now, so there's a subject line, and then in every email application now, there's subject line plus a preview. We taught salespeople how to optimize your subject line to get opens, but now people can see the first few words.
Better optimize that too.
You got to optimize that too, because you've got to create a feeling that the limbic filter is not going off going, oh, this person's sending me an email because they want to sell me. So we need to think about the first few words that we use in the emails that we send out. And if they're I, me, which most of the emails I got as a CRO are, it's like, I wanted to schedule time with you. I thought that you would be interested in this. Make it about them right out of the gate. So your first sentence has got to be something unique to, let's say I'm prospecting you.
Right.
In those first few words, I better be using sales babble or something that your whole world, our buyer's whole world is out there for you to find. I was looking at connecting with an SVP of sales that I wanted to talk about something. And I started with my email because I found out very easily just by looking at his second tweet on his Twitter feed that he's a Toronto Raptors basketball fan. And I was just like, I started the email with, hey, I saw Toronto was looking at potentially hiring Jerry Stackhouse as their coach. That's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, the reason for my email. And it's like, it gets them. And then you've got to keep your email short. You can't, if you open an email as a buyer and it looks like War and Peace, the brain goes, I'm deleting this. Your emails have got to be really short, but then give a path to more information. And so what I will often recommend is that you think Twitter, not War and Peace for your emails. So right. Twitter length, and then make a very easy link for more information below your signature on your emails. You won't scare the brain, and you'll allow people to opt in for more information instead of you unloading about how great you are.
Do you literally have 20 more of these?
These tips? Mm-hmm. At least.
So Todd, if you're not in a rush, you want to come back next week and finish up with some more
we can
tips on the strategy?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do that.
Awesome.
All right, cool.
Thank you for visiting Sales Babble. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I had a blast doing it. This is fun. Thank you.
So next week, we're going to finish up the second part of the series, and we're going to talk about tactics that you can use to implement some of the strategies that Todd spoke about. To connect with Todd, you can find him in the show notes. You can find links to him at www.salesbabble.com/221, which brings up an interesting point. There are 221 episodes in the back catalog in the archives of Sales Babble. If you would like to grow your selling skills, this is where you need to go to dig in and find things that are immediately applicable to the challenges that you're seeking today, that you're trying to solve today. If you got a question, you got a comment, don't hesitate to reach out and connect with me. Go to the website and click Babble Me, or you can send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. I would love to hear your thoughts your comments, and any ideas that you have to make this podcast better. So until next week, take care and have a highly successful and profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.